So we're looking at the lectionary readings today, and we're looking at Job chapter 1 verse 1 and through to verse 10, looking at Psalm 26, Hebrews 1 to 4, and the Gospel of Mark chapter 10 verses 2 to 16. So just going back to Job then to start us off, we have a real clear picture of God, of his authority over Satan, of the fact that Satan has been given his authority over the earth and over the people, and at the same time, and the attributes and qualities of Satan in this book of Job, and also the qualities of Job and what it means to be a believer, what it means to trust God. And it starts off in the first verse: there was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was blameless and upright, and one who feared God and shunned evil. Now, Satan was a created being. God created Satan. God created the angels, and the angels were very, very high beings. They are spiritual beings, and we're very sure that God created mankind, to be a little lower than the angels, to be lower than the angels. And when he created Adam and Eve, he created them to be lower than these spirit beings. And although he gave man a spirit, nevertheless, man was below the angels. And yet, on earth, God gave Adam dominion over the earth. And what happened when when Adam disobeyed God in the beginning is he gave up his birthright. Man, through Adam, gave up his birthright to Satan and the angels. That's what happened. Legally, he gave Satan the right to come in and take over. That's why the fall, we always think of Adam and Eve and the apple, and we see jokes, and we see we see cartoons of it, and it kind of like the fall of man, where we kind of fell from grace, and sin entered the world at that point. It can be characterized as more of a joke, and we see Satan as a little red devil with a pitchfork, just a little, to just give you a bit of a prod now and again. This is a different picture. This is something completely different. This is where we really begin to understand what Satan is, what his power is, and how he has dominion now over the earth. We've moved on from Adam. Now Satan is the prince of this world. Satan is the one who has dominion over this world, and he can do more or less anything he wants on this earth. But bearing in mind that he's still in subjection to God, but he has been given a clear run. He's been given a clear run in this world because Adam gave up his birthright, in the same way that we saw later on. We saw Jacob and we saw Esau, where Esau gave up his birthright to Jacob. So, being the number one son, Adam was the number one son on the earth. Esau was the number one son, but he gave up his birthright to Jacob. That's why that story kind of, it also shows what happened at the fall with Adam giving up his birthright to Satan. But let's just look at the power that Satan has, and look at the fact that God actually still has dominion over everything. God is God. God created the angels. So it says here in verse 1, again there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said to Satan, from where do you come? So Satan answered the Lord and said, from going to and fro on the earth, and from walking back and forth on it. So he is a being that is actually walking around on the earth, going backwards and forwards on the earth. He is somebody who is a somebody that is actually walking around on this earth right now, to and fro on the earth, looking for someone to devour. And this is what it says here. Then the Lord said to Satan, have you considered my servant Job? have you thought about him? Have you thought about testing Job? Because Satan's job was to come and kill them, steal from them, and destroy them. That is his role. He is anti-God. He is rebellious against God. So he comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And so it says here, have you considered my servant Job? And there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil. And still he holds fast to his integrity, although you incited me against him to destroy him without cause. So Satan answered the Lord and said, skin for skin, yes, all that a man has he will give for his life. So this is the flesh and blood aspects of humanity, that we will do more or less anything to maintain our life. We fight for our life, even from the word go, when we fight for breath. So there is this part of man that is striving to survive in a way. And Satan says, but stretch out your hand now and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will surely curse you to your face. So he's saying, if you were to just inflict Job with something, if you were to touch him in his flesh, where he really feels self, and where he really feels his ego is there, and where he feels that this is his dominion, his right, his body, and therefore he feels that this is something that he has to strive to protect, and is very defensive about anything that happens in the flesh. Anything that can actually affect me in the flesh, in the way I live, and that can be all manner of things in the flesh, can't it? In the way I live, anything that affects my own authority and autonomy over myself, and my will to live my life the way I want to, afflict me in that area, and you're going to have problems. I'm not going to be the nice person you thought I was. I'm not going to be the person of integrity you thought it was, because suddenly all that can go out the window. And this is what he's saying, in effect. Satan's saying, you just afflict him. You give him some problems and he'll curse you to your face. And how many people do we know that actually have afflictions in the flesh, that have problems in the flesh, and suddenly they don't want to know God? When their marriage starts to break down, when their finances start to break down, when their relationships around them and their families start to break down, when they have problems go on in their lives and they have diseases or they have accidents, suddenly God goes out the window. The first thing that we do is we run to the divorce lawyer, or we run to the doctors to get help, when we need to go to the Creator who created us, because this shows us very clearly where this dominion is and what life is really all about, which we forget at our peril. And what this says here is that there was this guy Job, who God really felt had integrity. God knew Job, and Satan was just taking the mickey. He just thought, no, that's just a load of rubbish. I believe that if you curse Job and if you afflict Job in himself, right where he lives, you afflict him right where he lives, in his own body and in his own skin and in his own relationships and in his own status and in his own ego, you're going to find a different Job. You're going to find a Job that's just going to curse you to death, He's not going to want to know you. So the Lord said to Satan, okay, behold, he is in your hand, but spare his life. So you can do what you want to him, but you cannot touch his life. Now that says something to me very strongly here. It says something to me that Satan is someone who's going around this earth who can actually take your life. He's just not this little red characterized demon that is this little red character that's got this prod. He's actually a very powerful being. And we ignore that at our peril. That Satan can actually take your life. That he has the power. And his role is to come to kill, steal and destroy. Him and his demons are very powerful. And we can't just ignore it and walk away from it and say, well, yeah, but that's just, superstitious mumbo-jumbo. Anyone that's had any dealings with third world countries and that understands things like voodoo and all manner of evil spells and all sorts of things inflict on people, and people die through these things. Anyone that knows about this can understand that evil is really real. Evil presence is real, and Satan and his hosts are very powerful. We sit here in the western part of the world, and we kind of see pictures that make ghosties and ghoulies all look a little bit, pathetic, really. And maybe we see films that make them over exaggerated, particularly in the realms of where God is concerned. But this is something that is real. This is an account of what happened with Job, who was a man of God, and Satan. And it shows us some things, far more than we probably would like to accept. But basically, Satan went out from the presence of the Lord, in verse 7, and struck Job with painful boils from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. And he took for himself, well, Job decided to sort of scrape all these. It's not a very nice picture, but anyway, Satan is the one that inflicted these things on Job. Now that's pretty powerful. Do you know anyone that can inflict you with boils from the soles of your feet to the top of your head? I don't think so. You might have someone that you want to maybe stay away from that's got some afflictions, but nobody is going to be able to do that to you. Unless they have an infectious disease and they know they're infected and they can presence and you might catch something, that's different. But no one has the power to inflict you with anything. But Satan has. Satan can inflict you with diseases and problems. And that's the important thing. So when we come to healing and when people rush to the doctors, we need to be considering the fact that God is in control of this universe. He's the same yesterday, today and tomorrow. It's the same God who created us. It's the same God who created the angels. It's the same God that has given power to Satan and his host to be able to inflict diseases upon us, to be able to cause us to have accidents and all manner of other things. And so when we have a problem, we should be coming to God with it. And we should be trusting God that he can heal us in those circumstances. And so this is something very, very powerful that we learn here from Job. So I'm not going to go into all the things that happened in Job, because this is just the first few verses today for this reading. And it does suggest that God is in control, and that we are all in subjection to God. Satan is in subjection to God. Job was in subjection to God. We are in subjection to God. Sickness and disease and life is in subjection to God. Not the doctors, not you or I, but to God. So this message is about subjection to God and God being in control of everything.